Hello everyone, Monty Python 2011, James Mackin, here with another review for you. And this time, it's Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Where do we begin? Well, let me just say that I'm a fan of the comics. I only got into the comics about a month or two ago. I knew only little about this movie. I knew Michael Cera and Mary Elizabeth Winstead were in it, and that's about all I knew. Also, Edgar Wright was directing, so I knew I was going to go see it because I'm a bit of an Edgar Wright fan. Okay. So, being a fan of the comics, I wanted them to adapt this this movie to my liking, you know? I'm going to say they didn't adapt it to my liking, only because they really rushed it compared to the comics. I mean, the comics take place over, I'm going to say, roughly 6 to 9 months, whereas the movie takes place over a week. I'm not even joking, it is a week long. Like, it's not officially stated in the film, but it's roughly a week long. I swear to God, the movie begins on like a Friday afternoon and ends on like the Friday night next week. It's freaky. Well, let's move on to the acting, directing, writing, all that good stuff. Acting was pretty good. Michael Cera, well, here's the thing. In the comic books, Scott Pilgrim, he's like a cool guy. He's sort of, there's a little awkwardness in him, but he's sort of like a cool, slacker kind of guy. And that's not Michael Cera. He's an awkward teenager, right? But I'll tell you, he did pretty decent in this. He was like a cool, awkward guy, you know? And then the rest of the actors all did pretty good. I think the one who was most notable, probably Kieran Culkin, who played his gay roommate, Wallace Wells. And yes, you're probably wondering, Kieran Culkin, that name sounds familiar. Well, Kieran Culkin, I have absolutely no clue what he's done before, but he is the younger brother of Macaulay Culkin, the arguably second most famous child star of all time. He was the kid in the Home Alone series. That guy, yeah. Well, the first two Home Alone, not 3 and 4, which really sucked. Oh well, so, everyone else did pretty good. The directing was great. I mean, Edgar Wright, he had a very tough job doing this. I mean, he's been doing this movie for like 6 years, and when he originally started, he only had the first book. Here, hold on a second. Sorry about that. Here are the books, and this is the first one. Here's the rest of them. And he only had this one to work off of when he started. And then, the other ones came out, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6, which I don't have. And, yeah, but still. I mean, he did a pretty good job, but it wasn't great, Basically, the basic plot of the movie is, there's this guy, Scott Pilgrim, lives in Toronto, bassist for a band, just started dating this high schooler, Chinese girl, and then all of a sudden this chick from America comes into his life. Name is Ramona Flowers, and it's sort of like love at first sight. And he asks her out, they start dating, and eventually, while he and his band are playing a gig, some guy bursts in saying, "I'm Ramona's first evil ex-boyfriend," and attempts to fight him. And at that point, Scott learns that he has to fight all of Ramona Flowers' 7 evil exes in order to date her. Now, the 7 evil exes, they're really different than they are in the comics. In the comics, the first one sucked, but in the movie, he was arguably one of the best. In the second one, the second evil ex, we barely saw him, but he was really expanded upon in the movie. The third one is without a doubt he's probably the second best evil ex, and they really transfer that over to the movie. But in the comic, he's a real evil douche. In the movie, just a douche. He's evil, but he's just a douche, And then the fourth evil ex, the girl, they really skipped out on a lot of her stuff. They didn't mention the fact that she was at college with Ramona. They didn't mention the fact she's half ninja. There's a lot they skipped out on, which was quite sad. And then the fifth and sixth were the twins, the Katanayigi twins or something like that. Very long name. And they were really quite awesome in the comics, and they really sucked in the movie. I mean, what they did was pretty awesome, but they themselves sucked. For instance, their most famous trait in the comics was that they finished each other's sentences. They didn't speak in the movie at all. Not at all. I mean, they cast two unknowns for like 2 minutes in the movie to play the twins, and said, "Oh, you're not going to speak." I mean, really, that sucks. It was really bad. And you know the worst part of it was? It wasn't even Scott that defeated the twins. It was his band that defeated the twins. Yes, Scott was in the band at the time, but oh well. And then you get the seventh one, Gideon, who's the best villain in the comics, the best villain in the movie. Jason Schwartzman did a very good job portraying him. And, you know, it's pretty much the same in the comic, except in the comic, he's a bit more of an asshole, whereas in this one, he's a bit more of an asshole. Really, they're quite the same. And that's about it. But there is one thing I would like to mention. This is a very odd movie in that it's changed the filmmaking style. I mean, it's not like revolutionary, but there never has been a film made like this before. This film is like, I'm going to compare it to Kick-Ass. Kick-Ass feels a lot like a comic book with comic book graphics every now and then, comic book scenes, comic book violence, etc., etc. Plays out a lot like a comic book. This, despite being based on a comic book, plays out much more like a video game. Particularly Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. It really feels a lot like those. And it does a very good job with it. It's very brilliant, so kudos to Edgar Wright for that. And aside from that, there's not that much else to say about the film. I'm going to say one more thing. I heard a reviewer say about this film that if you're a fan of the comics, this is the movie for you. If you're not going to like this movie at all. I disagree entirely. If you are a fan of the comics, you're not going to like this movie as much as you expected it to. You will like it, but you won't like it as much as you expected it to because it's not a very good adaptation. There's a lot of things that are essential in the comic that aren't really addressed upon in the movie. However, if you are not a fan of the comics, if you've never heard of them, you never read them, I get the feeling you're going to enjoy the movie more. So yeah, that's all I have to say about Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, and see you in the next review. Bye-bye.